And we are live here in the spoiler room, January 11th. It's a Monday night, and recently they've started wide releasing all of the Oscar bait, if you will, the Oscar season films to wide release from the limited release. And recently they came out with The Revenant, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, and one very gigantic grizzly bear. And we're going to talk about this film in depth tonight. It is a spoiler room. There will be spoilers, folks. And to help me talk about this interesting film, we've got in the crew tonight, first off, Mr. Cole Meredith. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing terrific. Good to be talking with you, man.
Glad you could join us for this discussion. And a spoiler room regular as well in the room tonight, the BFD, Mr. Glenn Bittner. How the hell are you, sir?
I'm barely hanging in there.
Let's grin and bear that pun. As we talk about The Revenant, yes, the film that got so much buzz because people were saying, hey, a bear rapes Leonardo DiCaprio. We'll get to that in a minute, but let me give you the synopsis for those who may not be familiar with this. According to IMDb, it sums it up as a frontiersman on a fur trading expedition in the 1820s fights for survival after being mauled by a bear and left for dead by members of his own hunting team. AKA, this is the Die Hard of 1820s. The Revenant. Glenn, let's get just your initial impressions here really quick. When I mentioned The Revenant, what's the first thing that comes to mind about this film?
Tom Hardy.
There you go. Everybody's talking about Leo, but why don't you tell us about Tom Hardy and in The Revenant here?
So I watched it not even knowing Tom Hardy was in it.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't even know it was him. I mean, not at all. Not at all. But, I mean, I love the performance. And then after I'm watching the credits, I'm like, oh, that was Tom Hardy. That explains why he was so good. The character he plays is just great. I love the character. He plays an asshole and pretty much a coward.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it so well. He does it so freaking well. I know Leo. Did he win the Golden Globe yesterday?
Yes, yeah. He did. Yeah, he won it as well as the director and score. They all won the big ones. So
I mean, it's a beautiful film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tom Hardy, I think, is the big surprise in that, and I wish there was some more buzz about his performance in here, because you're right, his character was almost more memorable than Leo, though Leo does put in a fantastic performance. Let's not get it wrong, but man, Tom Hardy's character came out of kind of out of left field. What about you, Cole? Your initial impression when someone says The Revenant, what's the first thing comes to mind for you?
Glenn took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, that literally, I thought it would probably be a stacked show. I thought we'd probably have a lot of people. I thought everybody would be talking about Leo. So I thought I would take, the road less traveled. But that is really the first thing that comes into my head. And not just because I'm a fan, but Glenn put it so succinctly, man. He's scary and he's a coward. I mean, try parrying those two as an actor, and he does it amazingly. But also, the next thing would be just the way it's filmed, which I think is just key to the pace and the tone and the vibrancy of the whole thing. I mean, nothing is missed, and yet you miss what you need to. It's a very intricately filmed movie, and I can't wait to watch it again. I've been busy in the editing room, but it's the type of movie that makes you really want to be a better filmmaker. I mean, you watch this thing and then you go work on your own movie and you think, shit, I need to save up for better equipment. I mean, this is an amazing it's an amazing film, but the camera work and Tom Hardy would be the first things I think of, and will always think of. I mean, Tom Hardy is key. I wonder how potent this film would have been without that character being so strong. Leonardo DiCaprio is amazing.
Yeah.
As he proved to all of his doubters with Django Unchained. I mean, if he had any doubters, and he
Hmm.
still has them after Django, then he just has haters. I mean, that movie definitely proved his acting skills. And this just takes it a step further. I think he's amazing in this. But without Tom Hardy doing the work he is doing, this film wouldn't have the urgency it has, I don't think.
Sure. And I agree. Tom Hardy really came up, surprised me in here. I had forgotten initially that it was, that he was in this at first, but then I saw him like, oh yeah, that's right. Tom Hardy's in this. Uh, but he had a big year last year anyway. Tom Hardy was in 4 films that got
Yeah,
released last year. He had a small part in one, but then he was in Mad Max in Legend, where he plays 2 guys. And
I
then
haven't seen that yet.
I haven't either. I hope to see it soon. And then he was in this, and he's really, I mean, he's actually been doing acting for a long time. Everybody kind of, Dark Knight was kind of the one where everybody was like, oh, who's this guy for a lot of people, but he's actually been acting for a good at least 16 years now. So it's interesting to see how far he's come, and how people are discovering him. And for me, yeah, his performance, and then of course you've got the director in here who did Birdman, and so Alejandro Iñárritu. I hope I pronounced this right. Anyway, Alejandro, he's fantastic with the camera. I mean, for your modern filmmakers, it feels like, well, obviously with this one, he couldn't do it all in one take. Unlike Birdman, you couldn't quite get away with all in one take. But you do get those longer action shots. Glenn, what do you think of the action shot, especially when those the Kree first attack the trappers? That really long tracking shot of that battle going on, was that intense or what?
That was a wonderfully shot scene. Or probably a collection of scenes. I don't think they did that all in one.
No, but they do very good.
That would have been amazingly impressive. But no, yeah, just it's so wonderfully cut together. You've got the mix of the up close with the trappers trapped in the woods, but then the longer shots looking out over the river and out to the out through the woods and stuff like that. Just beautiful cinematography, which is what this entire film's about.
Yeah, the cinematography is right up front there. I mean, there are some great performances, but visually, it's one of those films that you really want to see on the big screen to experience and appreciate the cinematography in here. Cole, you mentioned it before, the camera work in here. This production, some of this camera work couldn't have been that easy, could it?
No, not at all. We're talking, we're talking pre-visualization. I don't know what the storyboard process was. As I said before we started the show, I've been so busy lately. I haven't delved into the background of this film the way I would have with all of my other favorite films, and this is definitely one of my favorite films of all time. I haven't had time to decide whether where it ranks, if that
Sure.
has any importance. I mean, there's a circle of like Donnie Darko and Seven and The Crow. There's a circle of movies that kind of exchange first place. This is definitely going to join them. But the camera work is key, especially when you think about. I'd like to think they did do a lot of these shots in one take or one or two takes. Like the death of the son. I don't know what the use of CG was over the course of the film. I know the bear was CG. But I'd like to think a lot of it was staged. And if it wasn't, it sure looks like it was staged. I mean, it looks like it's in real time, even when there's background action moving in and out of the frame, and the foreground stays the same, if that makes sense. Again, I'm thinking specifically of the murder of his son, spoiler room, folks.
Oh yeah.
Where it pans away from the stabbing to the gut, I believe, and I've only seen the movie twice, but down to his son's face, over to Leo's reaction, and then in the background you see Tom dragging the body. I mean, and again, I may be mixing that up, but just the fact that I can remember that sort of action after 2 viewings just shows you the intricacy behind this thing. And that's just one sequence. I remember also the rescue of the young girl at the village. It's amazing. I mean, the way that is filmed, again, all of this is added to the original story, and I don't know if all these additions, I don't know who imposed these. Maybe that's why they lost 2 or 3 directors. I know John Hillcoat was attached at one
Yeah.
point, who also could have been great. I could see John Hillcoat and this going great, But maybe these additions to the story, I don't believe the character had a son, for instance. I don't believe he rescued, to anybody's knowledge, a young girl. But the way the director, again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but the way the director handles these sequences, they have flavor and nuance, and they keep you involved, and that's all because of the camera work. I can't imagine the script was that elaborate. Leo shows up, unties, rape victim. I can't imagine the script, said move the camera here and there. That's a vision. It comes from a visionary.
Yeah, it comes later in the film, but we can talk about that, Glenn. That scene where he kind of unplanning rescues the girl. I mean, he's just looking for his horse because they just killed his Pawnee buddy, but then he runs across the girl that the one group of Indians who have been on the warpath looking for him. I thought that was really directed well. I mean, you hardly leave Leo's side. What'd you think of that whole sequence, the way they played that out?
I thought it was well filmed. This is the one part of the film that bothered me.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, I was the second. After the first attack, when the one guy comes out and says, Pawaka or whatever her name is, isn't here. I'm like, oh, well, eventually Leo's going to stumble upon her and save her, because then in the very end fight, the Ree are going to show up while he's fighting Tom Hardy, and he's going to survive because the girls will be back reunited and she's going to let him live. So yeah. It was a scene I was anticipating it from 15 minutes into the movie. I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Well, yeah, it was more of a question of just who had the girl. You knew Leo was going to run across her at some point.
Yeah, I expected the French.
Of course, it was the French.
Of course, right? It was the French. Just because I know my history, the French fur trappers fucked everything, everything in this country. I don't mean they screwed it over. I mean they actually had sex with everything.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I mean it was a well done scene, but it's the effect was lost on me because it was too telegraphed to me. I was expecting it for too long.
Right. They pretty much were hitting you in the face going, oh, look what's going to happen. I mean, you watch enough of these, I should say, and you can get predicted. That was the one part I had with it, too, was that part did play out a little bit predictable. But I didn't mind at that point because of this character that they have Leo DiCaprio playing. This guy, oh man, if you hadn't paid attention to the internet, once the trailer came out, Leo DiCaprio's character, Hugh Glass, is this tracker with the Native American son who, and he at one point, Hugh gets mauled by a bear, and we do mean mauled. I mean, this was really cool. Wasn't this a die-hard beating of a character? I mean, this guy, he just gets mauled, not raped.
Yeah, man,
not raped, mauled.
My feelings about CG are well documented, but what keeps the scene, what takes the scene a step above what you would anticipate is round 2. Round 1 is like the Rocky of bear fights. It makes anything in the Edge look tame by comparison. And that's just round 1. And then the bear leaves and you start to breathe, you take a sip of your soda or whatever, and you think, oh, fuck, this guy is really going to get trashed, man. And then you begin to realize, of course your brain goes to the true story, which is, how bad did this guy get mauled? It probably wasn't his buddies left him for dead, and then he tracked him down, which consequently, if any of our listeners don't know, he did. Although the real story is more of a tale of forgiveness. There was no, to my knowledge, bloody battle. He just forgave them both and reclaimed his rifle. He did survive and track both of those gentlemen down. So yeah, it's an amazing sequence and really shows you the power of CG and maybe maybe it's who you have doing your work. I bet this is going to hold up well in 10 years. That sequence is the sound effects too, and the use of another thing I noticed in this film is a use of the terrain of the forest and the sudden drop off of slopes. Like Leo falls down a slope at the end of that bear fight. Consequently, this is probably just coincidence, but consequently, during his end battle with Tom Hardy, they also go down this huge slope. And during the whole film, the ground is constantly giving way. It just vanishes from under you. At one point, Leo goes over the hill, over a cliff with a horse. Again, which could have been a cheesy thing, a cheesy Hollywood thing, but the way it's filmed is so amazing. But anyways, the bear fight, yeah, I thought it was fantastically made. And
It was
again, not the first action we get in the film. I mean, people go into this film, probably just, anticipating that to be the beginning of the plot, and you get a whole bunch more tension right up front. Really, you're presented with a story, which is amazing. It's just amazing to me to see the way this director handled the material, because had I gone into this character's story, I wouldn't have even begun to see that you could do it that way.
Right.
I would have begun establishing his relationship with his buddies, and then brought in the bear. I mean, it's an amazing work. It's an amazing piece of work. Yeah.
Well, what's also interesting with that bear, I mean, the bear attack, it was funny. I'm still trying to get where people thought that was the bear was getting it on with Leo. I'm like, what? Really? Come on.
This is the first I've heard of this.
You've never heard it? Yeah, for a while, there were a number of people, and it was getting a bit of a buzz on the internet that the bear was going to rape Leo, and everybody's like, no. But there was a rather large vocal group out there trying to claim that. And you look at the scene
What the hell is wrong with people?
I don't know. I'm looking at it going, no. I think what helps sell that bear scene, though, and it's the key. I mean, it's the trigger. It's the real trigger to his, his challenges that he has, even more so than the first battle. I mean, he gets pretty much shoulder ripped off and everything. Leo helps sell that scene. You mentioned the CGI, but you actually feel fear for his character. His character is fear, but at the same time, you can tell him thinking, okay, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to stop this? But Leo's look on his face and everything during that scene really helped sell the CGI. Because he's, I mean, in real life, he's sitting there probably, tied to wires or whatever, and part of it was probably CGI him as well, but still, he has to try to sell something that's not really there. And he sells that scene well, and I think that's what helps with buying into the fact that Leo is that bear is hurting him. So, and you mentioned the terrain too. One of the things I found interesting with the way he handled this is, regardless of the mean things that our characters do to each other, like John Fitzgerald, Tom Hardy's character leaving Hugh Glass to die, and killing Hugh Glass's son just so that he could get out of there, and everything that happens, nature still appears to be the biggest enemy of everyone in this film. Glenn, would you say you got the feeling that regardless of what these guys do to each other, that nature was always there going, you guys got nothing on me?
Oh yeah, nature is definitely one of the biggest elements in the game. I mean, just the fact that that was frontier life. It's America, kicking the shit out of people, saying, "Yeah, you're not ready yet. Go back to fucking New York, you pansies."
Well, I mean, not just the bear, but I mean, I'm talking about the environment too, and the weather.
That's what I mean. Just everything about the environment. Although, I mean, they're lucky though. At least Leo's character is lucky that hypothermia wasn't invented till the 1900s. Because my God, he spends a lot of time in cold water.
Well, he's got that good frontier blood that lets him, survive that.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Although when I'm watching the whole scene where he's floating down the river and going over the rapids, I'm like, I don't buy this shit. That's how Grizzly Adams died. He died by going down a bunch of rapids. That killed Grizzly Adams. He's not tougher than Grizzly Adams. Fuck this movie. But then I got over it, because
Yeah,
I had to. But
you had to.
It was still so well done.
Like Grizzly Adams, fuck this movie. Yeah, there are. I mean, suspension of disbelief. Yeah, it is tough to believe, But apparently, the actual character did go through some of this stuff to survive. Of course, always embellished for a film. But it's interesting that you watch his character, and that's why I kind of call it Die Hard on the Frontier, because his character goes through like pretty much as much punishment as Mr. McClane does.
Yeah, there's no rest for this guy. I mean, they've even got the Indians coming at him out of nowhere and arrows hitting the trees, and
that was the big thing before the scene where Glenn was talking about where he's going down the rapids. I kind of like how that handled, because here he's gotten a little comfortable. He's starting to recoup a little bit more, and he's got his little cave by the river, and he's got the fish. And just as he just gets comfortable, those the Reese show up.
Yeah,
and he's gotta dive into the water again and try to escape these Indians who, for all their knowledge, they think that he's involved with the kidnapping of the chief's daughter.
Yeah.
And so you feel bad for the guy there. I mean, the guy's left for dead. You can't help but feel bad for Hugh Glass. So really, surviving hypothermia or whatever, you know what? I'll let it pass, because the guy goes through so much. Now, according to some of the trivia, Leo is a vegetarian. He actually had to dig into the liver of that the bison. Well, it's a bison there. I think it was a buffalo liver. But in any case, he actually had to bite into a real liver.
Oh, fuck. That's so gross, dude. I'll say right now, I'm a vegetarian, and not for any snotty, purpose. I just, I farmed, and my opinion of it is, until you have raised an animal from birth, murdered it with your own hands, froze it, eaten it, digested it, and then flushed it down the toilet, you really don't understand the process. I'm not saying, don't eat meat. I'm just saying,
sure,
you don't really get it. I've been through it, and that's why I'm a vegetarian, is because I think the whole process is disturbing. So to know that he is a vegetarian, and he put that, I mean, that's hardcore acting. I wouldn't do it. No way. I know Woody Harrelson has his pancakes made gluten-free, for Pete's sake. No way. That's hardcore.
Yeah, apparently he had to devour a raw slab of bison liver. That's actual. That's not just like some special effect thing or not. That's a real bison liver in the film that he's gnawing on, apparently. But of course, according to the trivia as well, he also had to learn how to shoot a musket, build a fire, speak 2 Native American languages, and study in ancient healing techniques. So Alejandro really had him get into the character, and actually had everybody get into character. Like actually learn this stuff. I would imagine make it feel natural. And Glenn, what about the musket handling? I thought they actually, for most films, I thought they actually handled that really well.
I guess they handled it all right. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the musket handling.
Well, you didn't get a lot of just continually shooting, like
like you did in like Glory.
But I mean, this felt like they were trying to go for some authentic stuff here. I mean, nothing's really clean in this film ever.
Yeah, I will say, what's his name? Hardy's character.
Yes.
He is a damn good shot with a musket.
Yeah. I thought that too. Yeah.
Well, he was
But
supposed to
it
be.
also kind of fed into his character, almost like he was a badass coward. Like you wonder just how conniving and horrible this person is. I mean, if he's that good of a shot and he'll still bury a comrade alive, which he does, he's just gonna bury Leo alive. We can't bury him alive. Will you shoot him? It's like
Yeah.
crazy. But anyways, the Musk. I mean that kind of made me think. I mean, how good of a shot is this guy? And
Yeah.
why doesn't he use his courage? Maybe was his scalping? I mean, is that what turned this character into a coward?
Well,
He came back and he was just like, screw that, I'm never getting that close to death again.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
The impression that I get from his character, and of course it is mostly about Glass, so we don't get into the Fitzgerald character, but you'd almost want to see a film about, like a prequel to this, about the Fitzgerald character, because, yeah, I mean, he talks about the scalping, which is just a fantastic monologue from Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
That is such a chilling, you know, in monologue from him, and yeah, you get the impression that he's like a scared animal backed into a corner.
Yeah, man.
He's afraid, but at the same time, he's lashing out. He's putting everything into it because he's so scared. So he becomes. I think he was a badass soldier who was captured. Who did have that partial scalping going on with him, and that kind of broke him.
Yeah, man.
To be this guy who would rather run than save any of his, character. At the same time, he's using the environment too, going, yeah, he's dead. Let's go. No, he's infected. No, let's just go. So no, true cowardice. I guess that is, him being a coward wanting to run. I kind of got the impression that he was more just done rather than afraid. But you think though that it was probably more fear for him than just wanting to get away from everything finally?
No, yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, yeah, he seemed afraid, genuinely. But that's my take on it. I mean, you could read it 10 different ways and be accurate, but he definitely seemed like a scared character, and I can't wait to watch the film more. But
Right.
it seemed like, almost like, what I thought of was Training Day, oddly, just in the sense that he could have been Glass, maybe given a different set of circumstances, but he just seen too much and been wounded, and therefore turned into the most evil coward imaginable. I mean, people do horrible things with power. I mean, maybe that's why he was such a good shot. He may have been that he was just an amazing soldier at one point, and just no, I'm done. I'm done. I'm lining my pockets, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. And hell's not going to stand in my way.
Yeah, well, that's the impression I got. Nothing was really going to stand in his way. Was it, Glenn? I mean, is that cowardice, or was he just done with the frontier, or was it both?
It was cowardice. He had money,
right?
So, I mean, there are people who do the hard freaking job because it pays well, but the second they got that money, they're done. I can't blame him for wanting to be done, but he's done because he's a coward.
Yeah.
He takes the coward way out in so many ways. He pretends he's all noble. Yeah, okay, I'll stay.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, this isn't going to go well for Leo.
Yeah, well, I thought about that with the general too. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good call. Let that guy stay. The guy who's been pretty much saying, let's just let Glass die out in the wilderness. Let's get the hell out of here. No, we'll keep him because of $300. He'll be okay by himself with him and some 18-year-old. Yeah. But I
had that thought as well.
Was he a colonel or general? The guy who was leading them, he was supposed to be military, wasn't he? He was actually a military guy leading
I
that.
believe so. I
A
believe so.
captain. He was a captain. Captain
Yeah.
Andrew Henry, played by Domhnall Gleeson, which, folks, is
Who did a good
interesting.
job, I thought.
Which is interesting because he was also just recently in A Force Awakens. So this guy's
Was
been
he?
busy, huh?
Was he? Wow.
Yeah, he played a Hux. He played General Hux, and he was Caleb,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and he was Caleb in Ex Machina. So he's been busy as well. Not just Tom Hardy's the only one that's been into a lot of movies, but um, I like the Domino Gleason. I was kind of worried they were going to have him be a little bit more not naive, but green, but his character just felt like he was just trying to get out of the wilderness as quick as possible as well, but at the same time try to maintain his captainy status, if you will, or posture. What was your take on the captain character, Cole? Did you feel that he was maybe scared too, or was he just more of feeling like, man, am I screwed?
Man, I know. I didn't get the impression he was scared. I just got the impression he was a young captain,
Mhm.
and didn't necessarily know how to do right by all of his men. But was certainly doing his best. And you hear stories about, I worked with a Vietnam vet, one of my first jobs out of high school, for a year or so. He was a night closer, and he'd tell me these stories. And young generals, or young people in charge during wartime, it's hard. It's very hard to deal with, to them and to the people they're giving orders to. So that's the impression I got. Was just the stories I knew of and have read from wartime. Young people in charge, and
Mhm.
I thought the actor and the character were very well rounded. I thought the actor did good by the character, which could have been a little, sort of disposable acting gig, and maybe it is, but I'll certainly remember the character. I thought he had some good little flourishes in there, enough to make it memorable. It's just he's just there to propel the plot where it needs to go. He doesn't even really need to be there. He wouldn't have been in my version of the script, which would be inferior to this, believe me. But I thought he did fine, man, for sure.
Yeah, it surprised me a little for him what they did with his character because again, I thought he was kind of a toss-off side character, okay, move, but then we get into the final act there where they go looking for Fitzgerald because Fitzgerald took his money and ran and left
Yeah,
Glass for dead. Now Glass is found by the general. And Glenn, did that surprise you that they had the or captain, excuse me, I keep calling him general, the captain. Did that surprise you that the captain actually went with Glass to go look for Fitzgerald? Versus the way
It
they
did.
go
It
ahead.
didn't surprise me that he went. What surprised me is that he took no one else with him.
Right. Yeah,
It's like we're gonna go out after this guy, who he probably knows is at least a competent person because he was, he survived whoever fucking scalped him for one. Um, and that you can't be a complete pussy if you survive a scalping.
no.
Um, and the fact that the person he takes the guy who is 80% dead. I mean, the guy's super pissed and he's raring to go, but he's like, to say he's been beat to shit is an understatement. I mean, Ash Williams has got nothing on Leo in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty much you were expecting him to die a while ago just because of infection, and somehow he's pulled through and's got enough adrenaline to go after Fitzgerald. Yeah, I was gonna say it surprised me too that the captain didn't take anyone else with them, though I imagine that maybe falls into the young inexperience or the young decisions that he makes much like leaving Fitzgerald initially with Glass, and maybe it was a
yeah.
guilt thing with the captain character feeling like, yeah, that thing I did about leaving you with the guy who didn't like you too much. I'm sorry about
I don't
that.
know how much of it was guilt. I think he took his position seriously.
Uh-huh.
And it's just he was pissed.
Sure.
It's I left you, to care for this man, and you fucking left him out there.
Yeah.
Because if you love him, when the other guy is just like, it's as soon as he finds out, he's like, find that younger fucker and arrest his ass too.
Yeah, I know, right?
So
Yeah.
I think it's more that he was just pissed.
Hmm. And then maybe not thinking clearly and not wanting to take other men, so he just like, nah, this is just me and the 80% guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything, as we mentioned with the cinematography, is just shot fantastically. You get the feeling of the blizzard, of the cold, of the changes in the temperature. What's interesting is I read another trivia bit that apparently they used nothing but natural light for everything except one scene.
What one scene did they not use?
Apparently, it was a campfire scene, and the only reason they did that was because it was getting such fluctuations with the camera that it was distracting visual. But apparently, other than that, one of the campfire scenes. But apparently, other than that, they were using natural light
Wow,
for the film,
that's incredible.
which is insane. And also the fact that they ran out of snow because they filmed it chronologically. They
Yeah.
ran out of snow in Canada and had to take the whole production to Argentina to finish it because it got too warm in Canada and they started losing their snow. And you can tell, folks, it's real snow. This isn't Hollywood snow, which I give them plus props for actually having this crew and actors in real snow. I mean, this is the second film I think we've had with real snow in it, isn't it, Glenn? Outside of Hateful Eight. Well, you didn't see Hateful Eight, I know, but that real snow. Did you think that helped with the overall realism and feel of the movie?
Yeah. I fucking hate fake snow because it almost is always way too light and fluffy.
Yeah, man.
And this
And it just never quite looks right.
and this just had weight, especially when they get the one scene where the horses are tromping through the really heavy snow. You're like, oh crap, this is real snow they're going through. Yeah, the environments and everything. The director really paid some attention to a lot of the detail in the environment, which I think really helped with this film. And you can see why it's getting the buzz it is. Got the 3 Golden Globes and that. I never felt like it was being, I don't know, pretentious to say. Uh, Cole, you watched Hateful Eight, and
Yeah.
it's a Tarantino film, and it's set in winter and that's why I bring it up. But it's a Tarantino film, and Tarantino films do come off, and I still love them, but they do come off a little bit like the director's a bit full of what he's dishing out, Whereas this one, it didn't feel like they were putting this stuff in just to wow people. It felt like a natural progression for the story, didn't it? It never was like showing off. At least I don't think.
Absolutely, man. And I enjoyed Hateful Eight. But if you have to see one graphic, bloody Western in the theater this winter, you fucking see The Revenant. I mean, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you, Tarantino. By my estimation, and this is just my own opinion, this movie, Hateful Eight, had a lot in common with Django Unchained, and they came out way too close together. It just, as a homage to The Thing, it works, but it's an inferior film to Django Unchained, and the two films have so much in common in terms of being Old West and having the slavery thing, and
right.
To me, The Revenant it's just not, and it's not as good as Django Unchained. It's just not as good, by my estimation. It's just, it's weird that he did such similar films so close together. It was very surprising to me. But The Revenant is a movie. It's pure cinema, and it, ironically, they added all these cliches to what really happened, but they don't feel like cliches.
Right.
play out. And I'm
Mhm.
not exactly sure. I guess that's called talent, you know. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it's a beautiful film. My mind keeps going back to specific shots, like the way that the trees look like giant monsters right after his son is murdered.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, the way they pan up to the trees for I'd say probably 30 seconds, maybe closer to a minute, and just hold on those trees. The way they're staring down at Leo, like you know, we've gotcha.
Mhm.
And just moments like that all throughout the film. The final battle, the way the blood looks in the snow, the way that they are just any chop could be a mortal wound, and they just get closer and closer. At one point, when half of Tom Hardy's hand gets carved off, he looks at it and goes, "Oh shit."
That was the best moment, Glenn. What'd you think of that final battle? Now that Cole brought it up, what'd you think? He just looked at that when he got his fingers chopped with the axe and just went, oh crap. It's just like,
Yeah, it was. He seemed more just mildly annoyed by it than anything else.
He just wants to
Um,
do if there's something.
and boy, did that a fucking adrenaline kick in for him though, because it's like he's gut stabbed and he has his fingers chopped off, but he's still fucking stronger than shit.
Yeah.
well, Hardy is a big guy, but bigger than Leo. But yeah, I mean, those two really go at it. I really liked that fight too because it felt like, that wasn't really a clean fight. Like, oh, we're gonna take swipes at the. No, they were just hacking and chopping at just about anything they possibly could on each other, and all brutally bloody. That was a brutal final fight, and you're right, Glenn. Though you kind of knew what it was, how it was going to end. With the Indians showing up, the Native Americans showing up and saying, "Yeah, we'll give you a pass," but he kind of gave them Fitzgerald character.
But he had to, because you knew his ass was getting scalped in the end of the movie.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that they mentioned, how he was, survived the scalp, I'm like, well, now you know how he fucking dies.
Yeah, but here's the final question. So we get the final thought. I mean, Leo Glass here just survived a mauling, hypothermia, eating bison liver raw, traipsing through the woods. And here now he got stabbed in the leg and in the hand. And the Indians, yeah, they let him go. They didn't kill him, but they also left his ass in the woods again. Does he survive? Or does he actually end up dying? Because they give you the shot at the end where he looks at the camera, and then it kind of goes to credits, and you're like, well, crap. What happens to the guy?
Well, he has his horses somewhere, right?
There's somewhere, yeah. I guess they didn't run off after the one shot, but I mean, they're still long off, and he's stabbed in the leg and the hand.
Yeah.
And he's pretty
I
weak from
kind
the
of saw
mauling.
that as like he can't escape. It's good he didn't kill Tom Hardy because the ghost still would have been there.
Right.
That's the way I saw it. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but it's like they will always be there guiding him.
Sure.
In fact, they aren't ghosts. In fact, she doesn't necessarily disappear. She just kind of turns and walks away, right?
Oh, of his wife, yeah,
Yeah.
the wife that shows up in his dream, the wife who died, the Native American wife that he took for a while, before she got slaughtered. Her ghost does show up occasionally, and then she just turns and leaves. And I was just wondering though at the end, I'm like, wow, is this guy really gonna live?
Well, that could be, man. That could be. I got the feeling that she was guiding him, and like that maybe the memories weren't such bad things anymore, and it's a good thing he didn't, off that guy, because it's not an end to anything, it's
Sure.
you can't. That's just the way I saw it. But you could see it as, yeah, he's for sure. I mean, there's a lot of blood in that snow. Holy shit.
I haven't seen, I don't think, a gritty frontier western like this for a long time since I'm almost going to say Ravenous. This had
Oh yeah, Good comparison, brother. Another movie, you know, if they'd had their way, that thing would have been filmed in a nonstop snowstorm too. But no, seriously, but
Yeah.
production delays, you know, just dictated that the thing will you get a little bit of snow here and there. But that's a great comparison because I love me some Ravenous, and the films do have a lot in common.
But I mean, nothing's clean in that one either, though. I
No.
mean, and in this one too, I give Alejandro credit for taking on a task like this. And one of the complaints that people have said, and we'll kind of wrap it up here, but for time, and as I mentioned, time, a number of people say this film went too long, but I kind of enjoyed the pacing of this film, actually. Glenn, what about you? What did you think of the pacing with this film? Do you think it could have been trimmed down by, say, a half hour?
I think it could have been trimmed down a little bit. I definitely do. There's only so many times we need to see him being cold and warming himself up. But then again, if as it is, I still think it's a great movie. I watched it the other night, or when I saw it the other night, I mean, a couple of times I'm like, this is kind of long, but then I'd immediately be drawn back into it. So it wasn't like
Right.
I was. Once I noticed it's long, so like I then started like waiting, like, well, what the fuck is this going to end anytime soon? I mean, come on, this is no. I just kind of went, oh, this is kind of long. Oh, look, they refound him behind this little happy man cave. Oh, there he goes back in the water.
And I thought it was an interesting bit of visual, and they didn't really put an emphasis on it, but it happens. For most of this film, he's wearing the skin of the bear that attacked him. What'd you think of that, Cole? Did you catch that?
No, you know what? I did not. I'm gonna sound like an idiot on your show here.
No. I mean, unless it was a different bear pelt. Glenn, what about you? Did you get the impression that was the bear pelt that? Because they did skin the bear. You can see it in the
They
background.
did. You see the bear. Oh yeah, I absolutely believe it was the pelt of the bear that killed him, or that he killed.
Right. So you kind of got
uh,
that symbolism there of the thing that almost killed him is pretty much saving him from the cold weather.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a bit of interesting visual, though of course I couldn't help but keep you thinking of the animated movie Hercules when Scar's skin showed up, but I don't know why my mind went there during the film, but it did. But I like the fact that for most of the film, here Leo is wearing the skin of the thing that nearly killed him, and it's keeping him alive. That just bits like that. This director, you could tell, really took care with this film, much like we saw in Birdman. And it'll be interesting to see what project he takes up next. I haven't looked up IMDb to see what he's doing next, but Cole, what do you think of this director in general? You've seen Birdman, haven't you?
I have. I loved Birdman. I was. I sort of felt like I wish every time Michael Keaton's character wasn't on screen, I was bored. I didn't get the lesbian innuendo or Edward Norton's romance with
Sure.
Keaton's daughter. All that was. I just didn't understand it. I thought with the one take structure, if you'd stayed with Keaton's character, you would have had a better film. Who am I to tell this guy what to do? He's a genius.
Sure.
But that's what maybe why this film surprised me so much is I sort of was the odd man out thinking, this
Right.
Birdman didn't. I thought it gave a great role to one of our best mainstream actors, and kudos to that. But I didn't see much beyond it. So I went into this without the highest expectations because I know you love Birdman, Mark.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I really sort of, it makes me want to watch Birdman again. Maybe there's something I missed. I mean, this guy is so good. This movie is so good. And, I part of me is keen to revenge tales anyway, probably because I'm a better shallow white boy. But this movie is so well filmed and just so well conceived. And the way they can take these cliches and totally spin them. And not without even winking at the audience. I mean, who would have thought you could do a Cowboys and Indians tale that's totally refreshing?
Yeah, and it feels like a tale too. It didn't feel like it was, trying to put on too much of a show or what. They just were telling a
Yeah,
story.
yeah, man.
It felt genuine. Though, I haven't seen Beautiful, which was his film prior to Birdman. I did see
Nor have
21.
I.
I did see 21 Grams though, and I didn't even realize it was the same actor at first. So
Oh,
21.
is this 20? He did 21 grams.
He did 21 Grams, which is
Oh,
a
I
really,
love that movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
no
mean,
wonder. This guy's a genius.
yeah. So I mean, he really handles some interesting material, and I really liked his style and everything with the Revenant. Some of these films for Oscar hype and that, you hear the hype and you hear it, and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, and then you watch it and you're just like, yeah, I don't see it. In this one, I can see it. I here, it's one of those films where film is being treated as art. It's not
Yeah,
just entertainment. I mean, he understands the camera very well, and the cinematographer he has for this was just amazing for this film. And I think making the environment its own character really helped a lot. Then the soundtrack worked well when you do have sound. There's a lot of natural sound going on in this film too, which surprised me. But the Revenant does live up to the hype, folks. It just, there is no bear rape of Leonardo DiCaprio, but what
he.
there is a lot of great performances, great direction in this film, and I have a feeling come Oscar season, it's going to be a big contender for some of the big categories in there. I think it surprised a number of people, especially with the history and some of the stories they got about the production being, in trouble and being a lot of conflict on set and everything. There were some stories about that. The end product, it's worth seeing on the big screen. Wouldn't you say, Glenn, that this is one of those films where you really should see it on the big screen?
Yeah, sure.
Of course, now everybody has home theaters, so I guess it doesn't matter as much. But I mean, visually though, the scope and the way they shoot this film is really fantastic, and I think it should be seen on the mega screen once. Wait for if you don't want to spend full price, you're worried about it, then wait for a bargain day. But I think you'll get your money's worth, and yeah, don't worry about the length of it too long. Just enjoy it, the experience, because that's what you want to do with films, is just enjoy it. And I think The Revenant is one of those films that you can, just as long as you can handle the brutality and the blood that show up in this gritty Western film. So we'll wrap it up here really quick here. I appreciate you, folks. I hope you liked us rambling about The Revenant. Glenn, was there anything you wanted to add about this film at all?
I don't think so. I think we summed it up pretty good. It's a really good movie. Um, Probably my second favorite of the year.
Nice.
So,
Well, that's that. Considering the list of films that have come out, that's a pretty good ranking of the list. And what about you, Cole? I kind of know where you're
oh,
feeling
I
on
didn't
it.
see any of the movies this year. It's the
Oh,
only one I saw.
I only saw two films, and it's the second. It's number two on my list. So, uh, Cole, I think I know how your final feeling on The Revenant. Anything you want to add, real quick?
No, no, man. I love this movie. I'm
Mhm.
playing it cool because I haven't had a chance to dissect it, but I really enjoy it, and I can't wait to watch it again. It's definitely the best movie I've seen this year. And that comes in a really good year of movies for me. I mean, I've seen some movies this year like Room and Mad Max. I mean, I've just seen some amazing movies this year,
Yeah,
and this is up there, man. This is amazing. This is a great film.
2015 ended kind of like 2014 did, with a lot of strong and interesting and amazing type of films that you didn't quite expect.
Yeah,
And 2015 ended the same way, and 2016 is looking to shape up kind of like that direction as well. And I will say one thing: did anyone notice him? I wonder if he puts it in every film. I might have to go back and look at his other films. Who saw the comet? Who saw the comet that we had in Birdman show up in The
Yeah.
Revenant?
I did see a comment. I didn't put it. I didn't link it with Birdman though.
You caught that, Glenn? In the dream
The Falling
sequence?
Star?
Yeah, the falling star.
Yeah.
I just chuckled at that. I'm like going, "Oh, what are you putting your own little signature in each of your films? We're gonna get a falling star in every movie now, for at least the dream sequences." Which it was just something else that I noticed, which I'm fine with if he does do that. I think it's kind of interesting and kind of humorous too. So,
Yeah.
but The Revenant, go see it, folks, if you haven't already, and look for it to, I imagine, have some major nominations coming up with the Oscars soon to be announced in just a couple of weeks. So we'll go down the line real quick. Cole, where can they find you at?
Man, right now I am on Facebook working hard on the new movie coming out. Shadows and Lovers Productions is the page. The Last Great Horror Movie is the name of the movie. Will be out very soon. If you like horror movies, check it out. And look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for having me, man. It's good talking to you guys.
You bet. And Glenn, what about you, sir? Where can we find you at?
You can find me everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, B-Movie Bunker, Naked Old Productions, as well as on YouTube, B-Movie Bunker, Naked Old Productions. You can find me on Galactic Netcast with my gaming podcast Adventure Party that I do with the awesome Brad Ludwig, gncast.com, or just follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
Awesome, fantastic stuff, gentlemen. And you can find all this stuff at the links to them, as well as links to old episodes of the Spoiler Room, as well as stuff that I work on at specialmarkproductions.com. We've recently partnered with a site called Nerd Slant as well, where you can find my reviews posted there as well as the work I do for We Live Film. All that stuff. Specialmarkproductions.com is where you can find most of it. Or on the Twitters, you can Twitter me at MovieManiac3D, or you can Twitter this podcast at Spoiler Room PDCS, and that's at Spoiler Room, P as in Paul, D as in David, C as in Cat, S as in Sam. So tweet us, give us a feedback, let us know if there's any films you'd like us to cover. Speaking of films to cover, in honor of the very recent passing of David Bowie, our first big special series, the Big 4-0 series that we're going to do this year, much like we did with the 25th anniversary specials last year. This year are 40th anniversary films, and so the first one of the year is going to be The Man Who Fell to Earth. So we're going to cover that film. That should be out in about a week and a half, that episode, so look for that. Meanwhile, check out our other episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, in the Spoiler Room, the conversation is fresh, but we do spoil the movies.